The city glittered beneath the glass walls of Elias Sterling's office, but inside, the air felt colder than winter rain. Clara Jenkins stood in front of him, her heart pounding harder than the storm gathering in her chest. For weeks she had imagined this moment differently. His smile, his arms pulling her close when she told him the truth growing inside her. But what she faced instead was silence that felt like a blade. Elias leaned back in his chair, calm and unreadable, his suit immaculate, his gaze fixed on the skyline like she wasn't even there. "Don't get in my way," he said at last, voice sharp but steady. The words hit harder than any scream. Clara's breath caught. She could barely speak. "Elias, she started, her voice trembling. But he didn't let her finish. "I'm marrying someone else," he added, tone cold. Final, like closing a door that would never open again. Her fingers curled against her stomach, where 2 small heartbeats pulsed in defiance of his rejection. He didn't know. He didn't care. He was already reaching for his jacket, straightening his tie, ready to walk into his next meeting as if he hadn't just shattered everything they had built. Clara wanted to scream, to make him see what he was throwing away, but her pride held her in place. She refused to break in front of him, so she turned, one tear escaping as she walked toward the door. The hallway outside blurred through her tears, yet she kept walking, whispering a promise to the lives inside her. "We'll be fine." Outside, the city lights flickered like distant hope. The pain was unbearable, but something fierce rose within her, a quiet fire that whispered she would survive this. She wouldn't beg him. She wouldn't tell him. She would build her world again, even if it took everything she had. Because someday, fate would bring him face to face with the truth he so easily turned away from. And when that day came, karma would already be waiting. The months that followed turned Clara's world into a battlefield of quiet strength. Every morning, she faced her reflection with swollen eyes and whispered courage to herself before stepping into a day that demanded too much. She worked double shifts at a small marketing firm, pretending the exhaustion was nothing more than lack of sleep. No one knew about the twins growing inside her. No one knew that each step she took felt heavier than the last. The loneliness was constant, but so was the heartbeat beneath her hand, a reminder that love, though abandoned, still existed through them. On stormy nights, she would sit by the window, her hand over her stomach, imagining what they'd look like. 2 little girls with his eyes, maybe her smile. The thought both comforted and broke her. She had promised herself not to cry for him again. But sometimes when the world went quiet, the tears returned on their own. Still, she never stopped moving forward. She learned to cook for 3 on a shoestring budget, skipping meals so the twins could have enough vitamins. She read books on parenting, watched free online classes, and built a small list of baby names. Hope became her only currency. The day she heard both heartbeats during her ultrasound, her world changed. The doctor smiled and handed her a small printout, 2 tiny figures curled together, unaware of the world outside. Clara held it close, whispering, "You're my miracle." She walked home under the city lights, the rain glistening on her cheeks, unsure if it was from tears or sky. She was terrified of the future, but even more determined to shape it. Her love would be enough, she swore it. Little did she know, far across town Elias's marriage had begun to crack. The woman he had chosen for status over love was already showing her true colors. And for the first time in his perfect life, Elias Sterling began to understand what it felt like to lose something you never realized was priceless. 2 years passed, and Clara's tiny apartment transformed into a world of laughter and lullabies. Her twin daughters, Emma and Elise, had become her strength, her purpose, and her reason to smile even when life was hard. She worked long hours designing advertising posters, taking freelance projects late into the night, all to make sure her girls never went to sleep hungry. Each morning began with soft giggles and sleepy kisses, and each night ended with bedtime stories whispered under a flickering lamp. The exhaustion was real, but so was the love. Clara didn't have luxury, but she had peace, the kind Elias Sterling had long forgotten. Across the city, Elias sat in a penthouse that echoed with emptiness. The wife he married for power was rarely home, too busy chasing her own ambitions. Their smiles for the cameras were fake, their dinners silent. He often found himself staring out at the same skyline he once showed Clara, wondering why success suddenly felt so hollow. When he passed by the park one weekend, he caught sight of a young woman laughing as 2 small girls ran into her arms. For a second, time froze. There was something hauntingly familiar about their faces, the tilt of their smiles, the sparkle in their eyes. He blinked, shaken, before turning away. He told himself it was nothing, that he was imagining things. But that night, her laughter echoed in his mind. He poured himself a drink, yet the bitterness of guilt burned stronger than the whiskey. For the first time in years, Elias couldn't escape the feeling that karma was quietly making its way toward him. And this time, it wore the faces of 2 little girls he didn't know yet. The moment Elias saw those 2 little girls again, something inside him shifted. It was at a charity event held near the city gardens, where his company was sponsoring a new children's center. Cameras flashed, reporters surrounded him, but his focus broke when a familiar voice called out to a child nearby. Clara. She was standing only a few meters away, holding the hands of 2 identical girls in soft blue dresses. They were laughing, completely unaware of the storm that had just erupted inside him. Elias froze, his polished image cracking under a surge of disbelief. He tried to convince himself it was coincidence, until one of the girls turned and looked up. Her eyes, they were his, the same deep brown shade that mirrored his reflection every morning. For a moment, the world went silent. His breath caught, and his chest tightened as realization flooded him. He had walked away from love years ago, but love had found a way to return, with proof he couldn't ignore. Clara noticed him then. Her smile vanished, replaced by calm composure that came from years of surviving alone. She didn't flinch or step back. She simply held her daughters closer, lifting her chin with quiet dignity. That silent strength struck him harder than any argument could. He wanted to approach her, to speak, to ask questions, but his throat locked. How do you begin a conversation with the woman whose heart you broke, and the children you never met? Before he could move, she turned away and walked off, disappearing into the crowd. His assistant called out his name for the next speech, but his mind wasn't there anymore. For the rest of the evening, her face and those matching smiles haunted him. That night, for the first time in years, Elias couldn't sleep. Every success he'd built felt meaningless compared to what he had just lost. He realized that the wealth he chased had bought him everything, except peace. And now karma was here, whispering through the laughter of 2 little girls who didn't even know they were his. The following week, Elias couldn't focus on a single meeting. Numbers, contracts, deals, everything blurred into meaningless noise. His mind replayed Clara's face over and over, the same face that once looked at him with hope, now calm and distant. He needed to see her again, not as a CEO, not as a man of wealth, but as someone desperate to right a wrong time had refused to erase. He tracked her down quietly, using old connections that made him ashamed of his power. It didn't take long to find her. She was working at a small design studio downtown, far from the shining glass towers he once ruled from. When he walked through those doors, the receptionist barely recognized him without his usual arrogance. He waited by her desk, heart pounding, until Clara stepped out of the elevator holding a folder and a cup of coffee. The moment their eyes met, time seemed to stop. Her expression didn't change. No anger, no surprise, just a calm strength that made him feel smaller than ever. "Elias," she said softly, his name rolling off her tongue like a memory he didn't deserve. "What are you doing here?" He struggled for words. "Clara, we need to talk." She hesitated, then nodded and led him outside, away from curious eyes. On the sidewalk, he searched for courage. "Those girls," he began, his voice trembling, "they're mine." "Aren't they?" Her silence was answer enough. Tears pricked his eyes as the truth settled deep in his chest. "You should have told me," he whispered. Her laugh was quiet, but it cut him deeply. "You made your choice long before I had the chance," she said. "You told me not to get in your way, so I didn't." He tried to explain, to apologize, but she raised a hand. "They don't know you, Elias, and I won't let you break their hearts like you broke mine." She turned to leave, her daughter's laughter echoing down the street, leaving him standing there, powerful, wealthy, and completely powerless. For the first time in his life, Elias realized the true cost of walking away from love. Days turned into weeks, but Elias couldn't escape the sound of Clara's words. They echoed in every quiet moment, piercing deeper than any failure he had ever faced. He had built empires, closed impossible deals, and worn success like armor. But nothing had prepared him for the emptiness of knowing his daughters were growing up without him. Every night, he drove past the small apartment building where Clara lived, watching from a distance as lights flickered in her window. He would sometimes catch a glimpse of them, two tiny figures chasing each other around the living room, laughter spilling out through half-open curtains. It broke him in ways nothing else could. One evening, rain poured as he stood across the street, drenched but unmoving. Clara stepped outside to bring in laundry that was left hanging, and that's when she saw him, soaked, exhausted, but no longer the man who once walked away. "Why are you here?" she asked, her voice firm yet trembling. "Because I finally see what I've lost," he replied, eyes glistening. "And I don't deserve forgiveness, but I can't stop trying to earn it." For a long time, neither spoke. The storm around them softened, replaced by the quiet rhythm of falling rain. She looked at him, truly looked, and saw not the CEO who left her, but a man stripped of pride, standing in regret. Slowly she said, "They deserve to know who you are. But this time, you will prove it through actions, not promises." He nodded, understanding that redemption would not come easy. The next morning, Elias showed up again, but not in a suit. He brought books, crayons, and 2 small umbrellas. When the twins ran toward him laughing, he knelt and smiled, unsure if it was too late, but willing to try. Weeks later, as the four of them walked through the park together. Clara glanced at Elias and saw something new: humility, warmth, and a quiet man learning how to love again. She still guarded her heart, but a small part of her began to heal. Life had taken everything from her once, but now, standing beneath the soft morning light, she realized karma hadn't come to destroy him. It had come to teach him what love truly meant. And sometimes, that was the greatest punishment and the greatest miracle of all.